That's horrible. About as horrible as this fucking movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's get this going.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Film Asylum. We are your hosts, Colin Peters.
I'm finished now. John Rochetter here.
You know what? I'm gonna let that one go because fuck, man, it's been a while and it wasn't actually as obnoxious. But I'm looking at this nice art piece in the back of your wall, so I figured it's kind of fitting. You actually got it done this morning.
Whoa, I didn't do that. I thought you guys came into my place last night and put stick figures as a joke.
I mean, that's why the back door looked like it the way it did. I couldn't get the lock open.
It was all Jeff. I was at work last night.
I remember falling asleep. I don't remember past that.
Well, the notification I got on my phone of the ring that John has says otherwise.
Wow, there's a bear attacking this door.
Whoa.
It looks like he's screaming something and his hands are moving. Must be Italian.
We'll get to Italians later.
It's an import.
Oh my god.
So, funny thing is, we're making all these references, and today we are going to be talking about. Oh, fuck me. One of the
Yeah, exactly.
one of the most probably hated sequels in a franchise ever, and we thought because the Blair Witch Project, I should say, to be specific with it now, was one of our earliest episodes, and it was actually one of our more successful episodes, and it was really good because we had like a strong debate. We had our friend Ben Ruth on as Lord Damien McDonovan. He was in character. He and Jeff were against Blair Witch, and John and I were on the side of Blair Witch being a decent film. And so we decided, hey, let's talk about the sequel, or since, I'm being recorded visually, quotes sequel.
It does have a lot to do with the first movie.
Yeah, it is an interesting film. It was rushed into production. It's actually not even called Blair Witch Project 2. It's actually called Book of Shadows Blair Witch 2. Which is kind of deceiving. And it's not the same found footage film as like what we're all accustomed to. It was actually more of a studio-based film at this point because the director who they hired, I believe his name was Joe Berlinger.
Yes.
Joe Berlinger. I was going to say
Berlinger.
He was a documentary director. He was known for doing the Paradise Lost documentary about child murderers where 3 kids were wrongfully committed for triple homicide.
Yes.
And,
wow. And it's in 3 parts. There's 3 parts to that documentary.
Yeah, it's pretty dark. I think he even said during his own deduction that he said that he believed the kids that were tried were innocent. But he was originally they wanted Daniel Myrick and Eduardo Sanchez. Thank you, John. No to come back, and they wanted to do other things besides a Blair Witch thing. I think that at one point they wanted to do a prequel and do more of the backstory, like what they had in The Curse of the Blair Witch, that little documentary that was like a prelude to the original Blair Witch Project. Mm-hmm. And this was clearly a studio project, though, because it was let's rush it into production, strike while the iron's hot, let's get another movie out, and that's basically what happened here. And the premise of the movie is it's about this hardcore Blair Witch Project fan, because the movie starts off telling you that it's all about like the hype and the mass media that Blair Witch Project was, and we were young enough to still remember how big that movie was at that time in 1999. It was all over the place.
Yeah.
Like, it was the horror movie that everybody had to see. People hyped it up as the scariest movie for the, since I don't know. I mean, to say Exorcist is like way too far back, because we had good horror movies even, post that.
Some people made that comparison. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not even going to get into that. But it was, they used that hype and that media juggernaut as the premise to drive this sequel. And the premise of the idea of the sequel was the Blair Witch Project is a fictional movie. Fans and people went nuts over it. And then people started doing their own Blair Witch thing. And this guy named Jeff, he decides that he's going to start his own like little inside store where he makes Blair Witch stickmen, he sells dirt, he makes the rock piles and like sells them online or some stupid crap like that. And one of the things he does is he decides that he's going to have a Blair Witch hunt tour where he takes people through the woods where the kids supposedly got lost. And on his journey there, he has a group of people. You have Erica, who was a Wiccan, and she's upset that the Blair Witch was depicted as an evil person. She tries to say Ellie Kedward was actually a good witch, and she was just misunderstood. Kim is this goth chick. She's a bit of an outsider. She's a fan of the movie, and she's also psychic. It's kind of random that she's just psychic.
She's depicted as one of the outside members of the social structure of people. Now, she definitely represents the goth community, but she also represents the outsiders.
And you have Steven and Tristan. They're a couple. Tristan's pregnant. I think they said she's 6 weeks pregnant with a baby. And they're not married, but I think they're just a couple. And they're working on a book called History or Hysteria, I think, about the Blair Witch.
Yeah, they're undecided about that title in the movie. They're thinking, well, maybe we'll do it this way. No, maybe we should do it that way.
Yeah, they're trying to basically see if the history is just history, or if there is any sort of like is it real? Is it not? Basically, is what they're on the search for. So it evolves around these group of people, and it's actually pretty well rounded. It seems like you have the fans, like people from like an actual religion, because Wiccan really is a religion that they consider to be witches. And then you have these intellectuals that are coming along to see like what they can find through these fandom events. And then you have Jeff, who is the guy who's leading the charge and is all hyped up and saying like, hey, let's go, let's do it. He's really excited and he wants to make a profit. You're right, John.
It's about money.
So one of the first things they do is they go to the ruins of Rustin Parr's house into the woods. They're supposed to stay up all night, and they set up cameras and want to document everything. But here what happens, they black out. And that is when shit changes, and it starts to become more of a psychological thriller than a straight up horror movie. And the funny thing was, it was actually supposed to be more of a psychological thriller so that they would do something different with it. Studio didn't like that. So when production ended, they had to go back and redo some scenes. Like, they didn't really have a main villain. So they added scenes like the character Jeff being in a mental institution, and it felt so random and out of place, and it didn't seem to really fit in there. And they just stuck it in the beginning, and it's like, what is this all about?
Yeah. They when they interviewed Joe Berlinger for the job, they offered him a bunch of different scripts for this film in terms of what they wanted to do to the studio. And Joe Berlinger turned down them all, thinking this is just a repeat of what you did originally. Artisan Entertainment being the studio that did Blair Witch, the Blair Witch Project. He hated all of them, and then they suggested, okay, what would you want to present in a sequel? And he gave them his input. They really liked it, and so they went with it. So you think they're on the same page with this, where he wanted to do, like you said, Colin, a psychological unraveling, where it kind of starts lighthearted. The beginning of the movie starts very lighthearted, where you're not sure if is this amusing, this is funny, because his goal was to create a movie about our perception of media and how everything is overblown and overhyped by what we see on the TV or read in magazines and movies. He wanted to make fun of that, sort of be a satire, if you will. And then as the movie progresses, the event goes from bad to worse.
Yeah, the movie's very much kind of like a meta movie. You know, like you can hearken it to Scream or New Nightmare in a way, because it's taking what was a movie is now, it is a movie, and we're making it into this like new thing that's put in place where people are inspired by this film. And that's what this sequel was. The script was supposed to be ready in 5 weeks. So right there, it's already rushed. And I think they started early in 2000 to film it, and they wanted to release it in October. I forget when they started production. It was just really risky, and it
must have been immediate because they wanted to cash in on the boatload of money they made from the first movie.
And despite what some people say, I feel like I should get this out of the way, is the movie, it didn't make nearly as much money as the Blair Witch Project did, but it did make a profit.
It did, yes. I think the Book of Shadows, Blair Witch 2 ended up grossing on a worldwide scale $47 million compared to the Blair Witch Project's $248 million worldwide, a difference of $200+ million. Massive difference between the two films. So,
and for a movie that was made with a budget of $15 million, and considering that the hype just kind of died down and it was obviously a rush sequel. Like, I even remember when the sequel came out and it was kind of like, who cares? You know,
right. I think
that's still a good feat to make that amount of money and not be considered a flop, despite how the product turned out. And it actually has like a lot of good roots to it. I found out that Joe Berlinger was inspired by the book 6 Characters in Search of an Author.
Yep, by Luigi Pirandello in 1921, I believe. It's an absurdist play in Italy, and then it made its way to the United States. I think it's mostly an improv play, if you will. All the characters don't really have formal names. They're just called the director, the father, the mother, the stepmother, the stepdaughter, the stepbrother, the brother. They don't really have actual names. And I think it's just kind of, it's mostly an improv play, I think, from what I believe. Like I said, it's theater of the absurd. And that's what he wanted to bring with these characters to create a type of archetype, if you will. They represent a certain demographic.
Yeah, and he mixed a lot of good other themes into the project as well. And he took ideas from the movie Audition. Jeff, you remember that one?
Takashi Miike's Audition.
That one, Jacob's Ladder, and the theme of perception versus reality. That was another big theme throughout the movie.
So he did his homework. I mean, he really wanted to go in this guns a-blazing. He really stuck with a vision.
That's the thing people don't realize. Like, we see on face value that the studio executives clearly wanted a different movie than what was presented. And it sounds like this movie could have been a lot better than what it is as far as the final product goes. But, you know, like, they hired a guy to do his job, and he did his job, and then studio executives just said, no, this is not what we want.
Yeah.
I mean, like, that's the problem with studios, is that I understand they're the people with the money. It's kind of like asking your mom and dad for allowance, but it's, what are you going to do for me in return? But even though you're doing what you're supposed to do, and they're saying, do this, do that, it's kind of like, especially now, if you hear Rob Zombie talk about working with the Weinsteins during Halloween, it was the same thing. It was the same stupid garbage. And it just, like, I can see why Rob Zombie hated it. I mean, he had a 3-picture deal, and he talked him down to just doing another one to just be out of his contract at that point, because it was just such a bad experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they wanted a traditional horror movie, not a psychological thriller.
But even if you look at the original, that was more of a psychological thriller than it was a horror movie.
Exactly.
Because
it was.
Because, like, as much as I bitched about not seeing The Witch, it made sense in that concept. If they would have marketed it more as a psychological thriller, I might have not hated it as much. But if you're doing it that route where you're trying to do the traditional horror, but sneak in this thriller, it's gonna piss off a lot of people. The same thing they did with the sequel was you could see right off the bat it had a different feel. That psychological thriller aspect was already present because, yeah, you're talking about a movie as it was a movie. Like you've got crazed fans now harassing this poor town. So like you're already building it up. I totally agree with the whole fucking Asylum thing. I'm like, what the fuck am I watching? I got more mad because they weren't wearing fucking gloves when they jammed that shit up his nose.
And they're smoking while they're doing it.
Yeah, I'm like, fucking guys.
You look like chicken broth or something that they're just pouring in. It's like going up his nose. And it's like, what are they doing? What are they doing?
Yeah, that part I was like, all right, you probably got to cut that one out. I probably would have been fine either way. But even the build up, so like you're already getting a group of people that you said they're different dynamics, different whatever, putting them together, and then like they're going on a tour to, supposedly haunted woods. So yeah, you're gonna have all this tension at first because like you're a bunch of strangers going, oh yeah, it's my first time doing this tour. Good luck. Like someone's gonna get fucking hurt.
Yeah. He even says we're all virgins on this tour.
God, throwing drugs and alcohol and cameras everywhere.
Yeah, the amount of alcohol they consumed that night. I'm like, no wonder you blacked out.
That's just it. I mean, like when they said like, oh man, what happened? It's like you were literally smoking weed and drinking. Like, did you not think you were
all night? And it's snowing pages of a manuscript.
How does it like still snow? Like you see,
I don't know.
They're throwing up all these papers and stuff.
Is the Blair Witch conjuring up some spell where it's just spinning pages of the novel in the air?
I actually heard somebody on YouTube say it was probably the script for Blair Witch 3.
Yeah, I have to admit that was a beautiful shot. Like it actually, like the snow coming down, everybody waking up, and I'm like, that was actually kind of a beautiful shot. I'm like, it kind of felt right.
It's a cool visual, but how is that possible?
I will say throughout this whole movie, the cinematography is awesome. Like the look of the woods, the way the colors kind of pop and then they don't pop. I think they really captured the beauty of the film. Mm-hmm. Excellent. Whoever their director of photography was fantastic.
I forget the DP. I'll have to look him up. Yeah.
But I have to admit, my favorite character had to be the sheriff screaming at all those fans, like, get the fuck out of the woods.
There's no Blair Witch here.
I kind of figured you were going to like it.
Yeah, just because like how like blatantly much of an asshole he really was. And like him screaming at those fans, get the fuck out of the woods.
He constantly had it out for Jeff.
Yeah, I think that character also tried to model off, the studio tried to model him off of a similar type of real sheriff from Paradise Lost, the child murders at Robin Hood Hills. There is
I think you're
real
right.
sheriff that looks exactly like the character in Book of Shadows.
Yeah, I think you're right. They didn't want to say the guy's name specifically. But,
yeah. I know the real residents of the town, they were furious when the real film crew was coming in there to make another Blair Witch movie. They
were like, not again.
Relatively pissed off. And they actually managed to squeeze in some legit interviews before it got bad.
Oh, dude, I believe it. They're probably so fucking tired of fans, the film crews being there, everyone filming their town. It's like, it's a small town. Fuck off.
Looking for the house, like property damage. I mean,
yeah. And meanwhile, the house isn't even in the same park. It's in a different park.
It is.
I knew people who did do that, and they were like, I couldn't find the house. And I was like, it's because it's in a different location.
It's not where you think it is.
They were walking for 3 days. Of course, they were in a different location.
I guess he's Schreiber. That is the DP.
Oh, okay. Kudos to them. I really liked the work they did.
Yes,
beautiful.
Mostly television stuff, but she's been around for a while.
I mean, yeah, she shot it amazing. It looked beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
May have not played out well, but it fucking looked amazing.
Some of the special effects are very noticeable, especially when like the ghostly apparitions of the kids, and I think even the owl's wings were CGI'd because there was a talk with Joe Berlinger thinking when the owl shot through Jeff's his
Factory?
studio factory,
it was
his
a
studio
broom
factory
warehouse.
window. Yeah, they said it looked too much like a potato when the owl shot through the window, so they actually CGI'd wings on the thing. And that's another throwback because I know Joe Berlinger really wanted to have the owl in because to some cultures an owl represents death or a bad omen, if you will.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I remember Kim looks up when they were at the ruins of Rustin Parr's house drinking and getting high. She sees the owl then.
Mm-hmm.
She was like already telling psychic things. Like at one point when they wake up after they blacked out and they see that Steven's research is all torn up and he's pissed off about it, and Jeff's cameras are all ruined. She's the one who says like, "Oh, we still have the tapes," and they're like, "What do you mean we still have the tapes?" And she says, "I see them, and here they're in the same part of the ruins where they found Heather Donahue's old footage."
Yeah,
and right away. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Like the fact that you brought up Heather Donahue. I mean, I found out 4 new characters I hate more than her. So.
Really? You didn't like Jeff? I thought he was hilarious.
No,
he was the funniest one.
Come on, that part where they find out where they don't see anything in the footage, and they find out that Erica the Wiccan's dancing around the tree, and he pauses it and slows it down. And he goes, "Ladies and gentlemen, that is a naked woman." And then when they show her, and she's like, "If this is a joke, this isn't funny. I gotta get out of here." And he just looks at everybody drinking his coffee, and he's like, "You believe her?"
He does have the best lines.
I think he's hilarious.
But, I mean, the one-liners, the one-liners do not make up for him being such a shitty person.
I'm not saying he's a good person for it, but he's entertaining to watch.
No, yeah, I can
entertainingly unlikable douchebag.
That one scene where they're looking for Erica, and he's like, "I'm telling you, she's not here. She probably took off in my van." What the hell happened to my van? Of course, I can't do it justice.
No.
He was hilarious.
He's definitely one that's taken off, I think, the most out of this group. I mean, he's mostly known for the hit TV show Burn Notice alongside Bruce Campbell on the USA Network. And he's managed to find some steady work. But, however, Erica, she, I know, played the character Pepper in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake. And I think, Erica, so she has a tie to the horror community. I know Kim Director, she was in a couple episodes of Nosferatu on AMC. So,
yeah. Oh, she was the one girl in the van.
Yes.
Erica was, okay. Mm-hmm. Wow, yeah, that was her. Huh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so everybody has like their ties to the horror community. So I give that a lot of praise, just trying to find work. But
well, I thought it was also cool that there were some cliche tributes that were in the movie, and the studio didn't like it because they said they were too cliche. But the director, there was a scene where these dogs are barking, and there's Jeff uses these a recording whenever he opens the door to his warehouse that he's living in. There are these dogs that bark as like a security of sorts, but they're not real. It's just dog audio. But at one point he does hear dogs barking outside and he sees them. That's supposed to be in reference to the Omen.
Mm-hmm.
They see Erica dancing around a tree again outside. That was in reference to Evil Dead 2.
Yep. Evil Dead 2.
You see Kim, they hallucinate and they see Kim eating the owl that gets thrown into the warehouse. That was supposed to be in reference of Night of the Living Dead. And at one point when they have to see all of what happened the night they blacked out, they play the tapes in reverse, and that was supposed to be in reference to The Exorcist.
Yep.
So there's some pretty cool stuff to this movie that people don't catch on a first take, because I'll admit, when I first saw this movie, I think I saw it on the Independent Film Channel, and I had no desire to see it or go out of my way to see it, and it was just on, and I said, okay, I'll give this a chance, because it was probably October or something, and it was something new. And I didn't hate it. like at first. I didn't think it was good, but I was like, okay, oh, whatever.
Yeah.
But I felt like it was also a movie that I should probably give another chance and watch again, because it did feel like there was kind of like how we talked about Silent Night, Deadly Night, how there is a good movie in there, but something's keeping it from its full potential.
The director. That was my opinion, was the director was holding back Silent Night, Deadly Night.
Oh, I thought you meant this one. I was like,
no, not this one.
I'm like reading all this stuff, and I'm like, clearly he had an idea.
Joe Berlinger was crafting something better than what the studio could have conjured up. He, like you said, he was trying to create a psychological thriller, unraveling, very much akin to Jacob's Ladder and Audition. But the studio wanted a slasher film. They wanted a slasher film, and you get that even in the opening title crawl.
What makes no sense at all. You see these quick cuts of people looking like they're getting slashed in like satanic ritual type.
That right then and there, you know, the people that you're going to be following in this movie, they're already guilty of something.
Yeah, and not only that, but you get a scene right away where Jeff is in an interrogation room with a cop.
Yeah.
Like you see him with longer hair. So the part of him being outside of the insane asylum is done. So now it's like, okay, I guess something happened. Is he going to tell this story, and tell his? No. It like just does another time jump. There's like so many quick time jumps that you're like, should I even care anymore?
You're being clever and edgy, but they weren't being clever and edgy. It was just a hodgepodge mess. Like they cut the film after it was done. It's like they threw the entire process, the whole film reel, into a meat grinder and hoped that something edible would come out on the other side. It didn't.
Yeah, it's so funny that they said that they didn't like the studio execs, didn't like the cliche tributes. They didn't like the psychological thriller aspect to it. But like Jeff said, the first Blair Witch was a bit of a psychological thriller. The cliches are a nice tribute to past films. It's not just a wash, rinse, repeat, and that's what they wanted. And then the studio exec said, well, if we don't get this, then make it a bit more of a slasher movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
even the music.
How? Yeah, but how are you going to make it more of a slasher movie when it's supposed to deal with something that you're not seeing the monster? You're like, what is it? It becomes a possession movie then, and then it kind of changes the aspect again. Because if it, let's just say the Blair Witch is inhabiting one of the 5 people that were in the woods, clearly it's now a possession movie. And even with that being actually what did happen, now you're changing the timeline again. So it's like, you guys want a thriller, you want a fucking slasher horror movie, now you got possession movie? What? Choose a fucking lane and work with it. Don't keep hopping lane in the middle of the movie.
Yeah, it is, and it's totally confusing. It is one of those like, why? Like, what I don't understand is, and we'll talk about it soon, but there is this like an experience with Book of Shadows. We should just talk about it now. John and I were talking about it before we went on air, that there is this secret of Rever, and it's basically reverse backwards, and scattered throughout the movie you see all these like little tributes and knickknacks of like kind of like Easter eggs in a way.
Easter eggs, clues, exactly.
Like it was more so for the video release and on the DVD, but what they did was
I think, it's only available on the DVD. It's not. It was never available in the theatrical cut. So I tried looking for it throughout the theatrical cut, and it's nowhere to be found except for the one character, Tristan, reciting a sentence in backwards.
There's that, but then there's also, you got to look for things like specific things like the doors, rugs,
water, grave, and mirror.
And the gravestone is when you first meet Kim. It says Treacle for Eileen Treacle, the little girl who drowned in the water, which is part of the original Blair Witch lore. Where they said they saw a hand come out of the water when this girl was just playing in the water or something. And it was only 6 to 8 inches deep. So they thought it was bizarre how this little girl died. It's her gravestone or her family's gravestone. And at one point you see treacle, but then in another cut, like it's still like the same shot, but the tombstone says further on it.
Very quick. It's like it's maybe a second and you see the word further.
So that changes, and that's part of the grave. And then in the grave, you see silhouettes of stick men as well. Mm-hmm. Then in the water, Tristan has a dream where she drowns her baby, even though it's only like she's only 6 weeks pregnant. You see a stick man drifting over. Mm-hmm. That has some symbolism. Yeah. There's a door that her boyfriend Steven walks through, and you can see a child's face that's reflected.
It's so quick. It's really quick. Like you blink and you'll miss it.
And when Erica finds out about how she was swinging around the tree naked at the Rustin Parr ruins when they all blacked out, she goes and performs a Wiccan ritual to like protect them. And you see the rug change in another cut. Like you see her doing it, and then they cut to another scene, and then they cut back to her, and the rug has different designs on it.
It says "or" on the rug.
That's it says "or." So there's like all these other words and names that are sprinkled throughout. Kim leaves a store. She goes to get beer. She finds these tools on a porch, or she walks by them, and like farm tools, and they're all bloody. Mm-hmm. At one point when Aaron was on the ground, when they first go camping,
she's doing a chant, I believe.
Yeah, she does a chant, and then she just like kicks back, and you see the word "me." When Steven smokes the weed at the fire, you see the face of Jeff like kind of screaming, like it's on the poster, and what you'll see in the close-ups of
so quick.
In the fire, the word "seek" pops up.
Yep.
Oh wow.
And then
there's so much in here that people miss that it actually makes it for like it's an experience. It's kind of like, instead of how you went online to learn more about Blair Witch on the Blair Witch Project website, there were all these little tidbits throughout the movie. And then they found the words "no" on the windows.
When Erica's talking to Steve, I believe, in the table conversation before the dream happens, where he gets his stomach ripped open, you can see on the window, it says "no."
And then you take all these words and you put them together, and it says "seek me no further or." And then it's not until the very end. We find out steadily throughout the movie, Tristan winds up having a miscarriage. And then after the miscarriage, they think she's just getting sick because she lost a lot of blood, and they're just keeping her off to the bedside because she's not doing well. But she keeps on dreaming, and she keeps on dreaming Ellie Kedward, the Blair Witch's dreams. So it's driving her nuts. And whenever they check on her, she's just going into like commotions. And towards the end of the movie, she talks backwards.
Yep.
And here what she's actually saying is the children will again walk free. And then you add that to "seek me no further," or the children will again walk free.
Yeah, that's the secret message. And you could put that in the Blair Witch 2 website, and you can get a congratulatory praise by saying, "You figured out the clues, you figured everything out." And I know...
give me a refund instead.
I know, right, exactly. I know what it's supposed to mean is that what this message is trying to communicate to the group of people in the film is that you need to stop your pursuit of Ellie Kedward, otherwise she will unleash the spirits of the children to possess and kill you all. I think that's what the message was trying to get. I'm surprised the studio...
Yeah, or the kids would just kill them. Because we do see the ghosts of the kids at one point. I think it's when Kim's driving back from the grocery store with the beer. She sees the kids, and she even says, I saw kids that looked like they were dressed in colonial clothing. It was very bizarre. She also, when she goes to get the beer, she sees a guy working on the refrigerator, and he goes, "I'm finished." That was supposed to be Rustin Parr.
Yeah.
And his tools were even in the shape of a stick man.
Yeah.
I saw that one, yeah.
So there's so much thrown in. And the thing is, I feel like most people would never get any of this if they had done research about the movie. Because if people did no research of this movie whatsoever, you watch it from beginning, middle, and end, going blind, I guarantee you 9 out of 10 people will say that was awful.
It was awful.
But then, well, yes, but when you learn about what this shit was going through this whole movie with the studio interference and the director, well, that makes sense why it was bad, because they ruined it.
Wait, so this whole conversation leads back to the original argument from the first time we did the first movie. Why the fuck do I need to do research to watch a fucking shitty movie, okay?
I think
because we're doing a film podcast, Jeff.
I think we're gonna, we can bitch about it now, but I think looking back on it, giving time, the way movies are going to change now, especially with how people aren't going to the box office so much anymore. I think interactive stuff like this will be part of a new experience for filmmakers. So we might say, like, why do I have to do this? Like Jeff said, like, why do I have to go on the website to do research? Why do I have to like look for all this and go on the website again? It might seem like, oh, I just want to watch a movie and be done with it. But at the same time, this movie might be ahead of its time, because this might be the new way that films could possibly go. And they were just kind of continuing that trend. So we may not, it's like anything that's misunderstood right away, and then it becomes a cult classic and people go, man, what were they thinking? But just think about how, like I just explained, some people might not see that interactive. Like, I know I said it on the original Blair Witch Project podcast that I said, I liked it because it was different. I liked that it gave us something more than you had to do research. And I've always been that kind of guy, like even in school, like I heard a story. It's like, I want to go to the library and check out a book and see what we got. And so to me, that was a lot of fun. Like, it wasn't just a movie, it was an experience, and it was fun. It kept you like interactive even at home.
Yeah. There's a couple of these films out here, like interactive theatrical experiences. I know Final Destination 3 had a fun thing on the DVD where you get to choose the fate of the characters in the film. You actually get to choose, like, oh, I want it to go this way. I know it's going to play out this way, but let's change it up. Let's have the characters make this decision because I said so. Black Mirror did something similar.
That's
with
what I was going to say.
Movie.
Bandersnatch, where you could basically like have a choose your own adventure thing. I was just going to say, it was like, see what I mean? Like, movies have been changing in a way. And that's why I say, like, this was ahead of its time. So, but I mean, I understand where Jeff's coming from too. It's like, I just want to sit down and watch a movie. Like,
that's fine.
Yeah, like when I did the Netflix Bandersnatch thing, and I wanted to see like how it would go if I choose this scene versus that scene, if I go back and try something different, or would it end differently? Stuff like that.
Yeah.
But would I rewatch it again just for that? No, I'd like to, just watch a movie at the end of the day as well, especially because we're so conditioned to the non-interactive movie experience. But like I said, I mean, especially when it came to like supernatural stuff, I mean, I think to like get into this, it was a real treat. I mean, I saw a lot of the fun for it. And I think this is a movie more for Blair Witch fans. It may not be for everybody, but fans of Blair Witch will probably appreciate, the history of like going online, checking it out, and now seeing all this research play out for the second one. There might be a hidden appreciation for it.
I mean, honestly, the most time I do actually any research if something doesn't make sense. So, like, if I can figure out where everything played out, I'll let it just ride. But if something didn't make sense, like if I'm watching it, I'm like, all right, this seems like there should have been something that would have been there. Hell yeah, I'm gonna look it up. But if it's like something that really just was like a little weird but didn't matter, or if I caught on real quick what the fuck happened, I'll just let it fly. Like this movie, I caught on a lot of that stuff, except for like you said, the little stick figures, like certain words. I'm like, even if you didn't notice it, like the movie itself did play out pretty nicely, but it's like it made me not really care for your characters.
Yeah, the characters really. Sorry, I was just gonna say the characters really aren't likable. I mean, I think it was a good combination. And like I say, this is another reason why it's made for Blair Witch fans, because I could see somebody from a Wiccan community wanting to get involved after the Blair Witch Project. The goth girl outsider who happens to be a psychic, I could see her being like, yeah, I want to do this because I'm just a fan of the movie. And there are those who want to research it and say like, yo, the hype of the movie, I'm going to do research on a book. Like it was all people that were like Blair Witch, like inspired.
Mm-hmm.
So like, yeah, you probably wouldn't see us doing it, or people that we knew from school or something that would just be like, oh, hey, this looks like fun or whatever. It would be an estranged amount of people. I think maybe the part where they had the international tour group where people were like from Europe and stuff come over.
Yeah, people from Germany. I think it's some people from Japan, I believe.
And they're like, oh, we came all the way from Europe to, see this. It was like, no.
To see some woods.
I don't believe that. I could see another group of people like them doing it. Or hell, even another group saying, we're filming our own documentary, coming in and doing it. But that didn't happen.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it was more receptive overseas than it was here. Because, like, it did get a lot of play. Like, it did make it seem like those 3 kids got murdered in the woods.
Yeah.
So maybe it was a lot more scarier aspect than to what I remember. Oh, shit.
Yeah. Oh, no, John, look out.
We're talking negatively about
But I talk negatively about a lot of movies and nothing really.
None really too supernatural related, lately. Yeah. Maybe The Fall.
Wow, that was cool.
But no, I think you're right about the part overseas, though, Jeff, because, let's face it, we've had a lot of history that came overseas before, the coming to America with Columbus. And there was all they had was pretty much live their daily life, eat, sleep, and breathe religion. And Ireland was known for pretty much starting Halloween. So, and, with believing in your God, there's also a bad side. And they believed in witchcraft and evil. So I think, because, I believe in God and I believe in Jesus. I do believe that there is evil and there probably is, ritualistic works that are at hand. And I do believe that it does exist, but we don't see it so much nowadays because we're just so distracted by so much other stuff, and we don't see it nowadays. We have so many jobs and so many things to do in life that we don't devote our time to religion or magic, anymore. But when you talk to people who still do the practice of Wiccan or other, like beliefs and religions, it's not the kind of magic that you see in the movies like Harry Potter or something. It's almost like a work of karma in a way. It just kind of like works through nature, which might explain why Wiccans have like this affinity for nature. Don't quote me on that, but that would be my 2 cents on it. Because these stories started somewhere. And then the more it's kind of like aliens. It's like, well, if they exist, why don't we see them? Maybe they do, but we don't see them because they don't want us to be seen.
Well, now they're in Mexico.
They don't want us to see them or something, But I think it's also just that like we lost track of the roots. And we've, especially like in America, we've been kind of like it's being pushed to like not be a part of a church anymore, which is really sad. And it's kind of pushed to be more atheist in beliefs, which, is of course everybody's own personal choice, but it is being pushed a lot more and more. Like, heck, I think some schools or politicians, whenever they recite the Pledge of Allegiance somewhere, they take one nation under God out. They just say one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all, instead of one nation under God with liberty. So it's, and that desensitizes us to this like work of magic.
Yeah.
So yeah, I could definitely see how it could be like a popular thing over there and be like, oh, this movie about a witch, huh?
Yeah. We want to see something.
Yeah, Europeans would probably take to it a little differently than we do. Mm-hmm. I mean, we have way more distractions than they do over there anyway. They probably still have a little bit more subtle lead of religion.
Yeah. And with the movie reaching a global scale depicted in Blair Witch 2, and that also plays into the satirization that Joe Berlinger was trying to create, the fact that this hype has gone through a global scale, that people are willing to just go out to some woods in Maryland to see something, because 40% of audiences truly believe that these 3 kids in the original Blair Witch movie died. And then when they started seeing them appearing in talk shows, it plagued on their ignorance, thinking, well, you duped me. What the hell? And I think that was one thing that Joel Berlinger had a problem with. While he does like the original movie, he thought that doing that angle angered a lot of people. So he wanted to steer away from that and once again create the satirization of this cultural hype over the Blair Witch. Is it real? Is it not real?
It's also funny with irony because he's a documentary director.
Yeah.
And this movie wasn't even like there were the scenes where they did do the handheld camera, you know.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't a documentary.
Yeah.
And that's what the studio wanted. They wanted to wash, rinse, repeat, and he was like, nope.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes you don't need the wash, rinse, repeat, because
that's not the point of a sequel. Now, no. I will say this though. Like I have said that I think this is geared more for Blair Witch fans. And I do respect that they tried something different. They did the meta route. I thought that was actually really clever. But I think they should have done the idea of a prequel or a sequel expanding more. And like they could have kept it a real movie. They didn't have to make it the whole found footage documentary thing again. No. But just explain something more. Maybe even see if we could see a witch, or explain could it be a witch? Could it be a ghost of Rustin Parr? Like, you know, could it have been Josh and Mike that really conspired to kill Heather? You know, like and weigh it. That should have been, like, to me, the way the sequel should have been. And try to answer questions and bring things up. Because sometimes we get questions in a first movie that don't get answered for a reason, because the story has to progress somehow and it's going to tie all back in. And they just kind of left you hanging.
And well, then 2016, we got something.
No.
Oh, it left us hanging even worse, because it's the same movie that took place fucking 20 years before.
It's like they took notes from Ridley Scott when he was doing the Alien prequels. It's like, here are questions, and here's a sequel with more questions instead of answers. It's like, what? Well,
they answered one thing at the very end of Blair Witch, and that's all I'm going to say. That's a different discussion, but there really was something, apparently. It wasn't just in our minds that people thought that the Blair Witch was. Is the Blair Witch all in our heads? Is it a perception of reality? If you truly believe in something, it does not make it real. But is it because you just want to see something? Which makes that conversation before they get blackout drunk, that was, in my opinion, the best part of the whole movie. And I think that was what Joe Berlinger fought for, and at least he got that part in the film.
Mm-hmm.
And everything else was a slasher / eviscerated mess of cutscenes and gore.
Yeah, they find out after Tristan speaks backwards and Kim says, play the tapes backwards, that's where they find the answers to that night they blacked out. Because at this point now, this is towards the end of the movie, and Tristan is just like going off the deep end. They can't find Erica, and then they find her at one point in a closet naked, turned around, which harkens back to Mike standing in the corner. So they're trying to figure out who killed her, what happened, you know, because they don't know. At one point, Steven sees her and says, "Hey, thanks for giving, you know, Tristan and I a ride we got to go home." And she's like, "Yeah, sure." And then she goes away, and we don't see her again. And they're all like, "Where'd she go?" And at one point, Steven sees her dancing around a tree outside the building, and she's naked again. but here it's just a hallucination, just
The
like how
bridge
Jeff
collapses.
just like how Jeff hears the dogs and he goes to get a gun to shoot them and then the dogs are gone. So
Yeah.
like they're all hallucinating badly. And finally they go back and watch the videotapes. And the lost scenes are actually inspired by Anton LaVey, that renowned Satanist.
Yep.
And his satanic ritual tapes. Mm-hmm. And they just kind of like incorporated stuff like that and try to like give a reenactment. And you see Steven tearing up his own notes and throwing them up in the air. They're having like a weird orgy going on. And then
Tristan looks in the camera.
Tristan looks in the camera, kind of does the Heather Donahue thing, again.
That's why I was there. Yep.
And she's almost like being a ringleader too. Like she has like more of a dark robe on and she's like raising her hands up and they're all dancing around her. And then they go to Coffin Rock where that European tour group came and they kill them in their sleep.
Like I said,
yeah. That reminds me, do they ever show one of them grabbing the camera when they go to kill them? Because the fact that they show that them getting killed, and I'm like, wait, so where did the camera come from?
Not only that, but you see Tristan is the one who takes the tapes and puts them in where Heather's old tapes were found.
Yep.
But the cameras were trashed. And who's recording her doing that? And wouldn't that tape be in there?
I don't know. That goes back to the whole possession thing. Like, I think the witch possessed her, and once the witch got control, that's what that was. But it does not explain how all of a sudden they have cameras on stuff that doesn't really have cameras.
The black magic in the woods. That's why it is.
Besides the flashbacks, do we actually see them getting killed? I just remember the flashbacks of the movie, but are the flashbacks like with the time code and look like it's a camera, or is it just the blackout?
It looks like they're in the blackout footage, so it shows like them going, finding them. You get to actually see a lot of them get stabbed. But
I remembered that, but I remember it looked like it was just like cut scenes.
They were cut scenes. Oh yeah, and it was actually filmed in Joe Berlinger's backyard.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Before it hit theaters.
Hell yeah.
Because they gotta have that slasher stuff.
He did not want to do that, but the studio made him.
I mean, that whole like flashback element and like the actually seeing the footage did help the story a little bit. So it showed that with being possessed and blacking out, like all of them didn't know what the fuck they did. So it was a nice element. It didn't really make it as much as a slasher until you saw what they did to these poor people.
Yeah,
they could have just did away with like the stab in the stomach or whatever, but showing like the throat slitting, the head bashing, and the multiple stabs, it's like, oh shit, okay. So they went all out.
Yeah, they did.
And you see that, like I said, the opening credit scene during Marilyn Manson's Disposable Teenagers, it's like I don't need to know that. Who is it? Like, I can tell that's probably going to be the 5 people that we're following that are doing these killings in the opening title sequence.
And
why is that there?
That actually wasn't supposed to be the original opening song either.
It was supposed to be Frank Sinatra's Witchcraft, which would have been more suitable.
It was supposed to help bring that lighthearted tone to the movie, but they said by adding Marilyn Manson to it, it appealed to like teenage goth kids.
Yeah.
Did have that like new metal throughout a little bit of it. So it's like it wasn't really like just the opening sequence. They added it quite a bit throughout the whole thing.
Oh yeah.
So like even her driving the car when she crashes it and all that. So it's kind of like they really were trying to gear this towards teens when truthfully they should have been playing towards the Blair Witch fans. So yeah.
They wanted that. That's what they wanted.
Which I guess Blair Witch fans were teenagers primarily at that time, but they weren't. It was like a specific demographic. It wasn't just everybody. And I guess in some ways, though, it's kind of playing it safe. It almost guaranteed some money because if you try to mass it out and it doesn't appeal to everybody, it might not make as much money, but at the same time, it might give it more legs where it could have. But they were thinking we got to make money now.
Yeah. Yeah. But, I mean, I know the film itself did not play it safe at all. I mean, farthest thing. They took risks with this movie, which I applaud. Still doesn't make it great, but you took risks.
Yeah, no, I said it earlier that I think the ideas for a sequel should have been what I had mentioned, or a prequel of like the Rustin Parr stuff more. Yeah. Continue the story, answer some more questions. I think there's a great lore to it. I mean, Curse of the Blair Witch is a fun documentary that goes more in depth about the colonial era and Ellie Kedward and some of her backstory.
Yeah.
This was just basically like a meta movie where fans, this is what could happen to you if you actually try this and the witch was real.
Yeah.
We didn't actually we should talk about how the ending is. we
should. Yes, we should.
So after they play the tapes backwards, they find out it looks like Tristan was the one like leading this ritual and kind of having him in a trance. And she kind of like plays mind games with him in person, and Jeff's videotaping her trying to say, just admit it that you killed Erica and somebody else died. Just basically like admit that you're the one who did it, and then we can end this. And as she's like climbing upstairs and antagonizing everybody else, she actually ties a rope around her neck. Yes. And she tells her boyfriend, you don't even have the balls to actually do this. You won't actually end me. And then what does he do? He pushes her.
Like, does he push her, or did she jump off on her own will and made it look like he did it?
And then the sheriff who has a hot nut for Jeff, he found the dead people that were set up to look like the pentagram at Coffin Rock. Mm-hmm. And he's like, I'm going to come and nail your ass. So he goes over, grabs them, hauls them away, and they're all saying, we're totally innocent. It was Tristan. She was crazy. And here they find out that it all goes back to this one line that Jeff says to, I think it was Erica. He says, video doesn't lie, film does.
It's Jeff who says that line.
Yeah, but I forget who he says it to.
To Kim.
Was it Kim?
It's to Kim as she's taking a drink.
Yeah, and this line comes back full circle because now they show the videotapes to Jeff, Kim, and Steven and be like, oh, you didn't do it, huh? You want us to see these tapes? And here there's a security tape where Kim killed this cashier at the grocery store that was giving her a rough time with this nail file that she used. Yep. And she made a threat to her that we see in the movie, but here it's not really anything. And then you see this file when she goes to grab the beer out of the bag, and it's got blood on it, and she pricks her finger and she's like, oh, this is that girl's nail file. And then you find out she actually killed the cashier with the nail file, like stabbing her in the throat. That's
crazy.
And then you find out that the guys actually push Tristan.
Steve.
And she's saying, no, don't do this. Don't kill me. Don't do it. And Steven, after he pushes her, he goes, fucking witch. And they're all oblivious to it. Like in their minds, they think something played out differently. Mm-hmm. But what happened for real is all on video. And like you said, video doesn't lie. Film does.
Film does. Yeah. And so what you're seeing in the video is actually happening when we as the audience members are watching the film. We're watching a lie.
Did they ever explain how Jeff kills Erica?
No. What happened was she's just naked and he's naked. I assume maybe
he strangled her.
Strangle?
I don't know. Well, she looked like she was a frozen corpse, so I don't know if she was left outside to freeze to death because she was naked in the middle of the fall.
I don't know. I mean, what we see was he had her body where she was doing the rituals on the rug, and then he just moves her into the closet.
And he was naked.
On the rug.
Yeah, and he was naked. And there was always this like weird sexual tension between them. Like he was flirting with her and saying, "Hey, I could release some stress and tension." And she said, "Try more weed." So maybe it could be hinted at, but it wasn't so in our faces.
Yeah.
But yeah, like we really don't see how that happened.
Yeah, that was one of the few deaths I'm like, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah, right. Watching the video and it's like, wait, they're both naked. And he just moves her into a closet. Like she was already dead.
That's what you're saying in the whole movie. What the hell did I just see?
Yeah.
That's what you're saying throughout this whole movie.
Absolutely.
And then it just ends. Like it literally ends with them finding out that they killed everybody.
Yeah. Steve's freaking out. He's like, that's not what happened. No. He's freaking out watching the footage, and then it just cuts right to the end credit roll.
Yeah.
I was fine with that. I'm not gonna lie. It ended. I was like, I don't need a closure. I didn't need shit. I'm like, cool, we're good.
I do love the end song that they picked. That's one of the
remember. I
love the end song. That to me, like, because that's a song haunted by Poe, I believe her name is Anne Danielewski, I think is her real name, but very, very talented artist. And this movie actually introduced me to her music, and that song is just fucking gorgeous. Yeah, Haunted by Poe. It's a damn good song, and that's actually like when I hear that song, I think of this movie because that's how I was introduced to this artist. Unfortunately, with a very terrible movie. So, kudos to the studio for picking a good song at the very end of the movie, but that's pretty much.
All right, here's where we really can't give kudos to the studio. With all the marketing and all the online stuff, what the fuck is the Book of Shadows?
There is no Book of Shadows. That was a decision by the studio.
Was it Steven's book?
No, it wasn't that title.
I know, but it could change.
It could change,
I'm just thinking it's the witch in the first movie. It doesn't exist, okay? That's where this book is at.
Yeah.
There is no actual physical Book of Shadows, and the movie's called Book of Shadows, Blair Witch 2. That's almost impressive. How often do you see that in a movie where the title has nothing to do with anything in this film? If it weren't so fucking sad, it's almost really impressive.
John, that's actually well said.
It's one of those amazingly bad moments.
It literally has nothing to do with the movie. There was nothing that like they didn't read anything to like conjure her up. They just hung out in the woods at Rustin Parr's, foundation, and shit happened in 5 hours of the night, and they were like,
they didn't find a fucking Book of Shadows.
It's a cool title.
Yeah, it's a cool title, but it means
it's a really
nothing.
Cool title. Yeah.
It means nothing.
I mean, they could have done something worse. It's just worse.
Oh
they can't do any worse. The movie was pretty bad. They could have thought of a better title that actually fit the movie.
They could have done like Blair Witch 2, Ellie Kedward's Revenge.
then I would expect to see the witch. All right, quit fucking.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, we didn't even really get a whole lot of witch talk in it.
No.
Like there was like, okay, maybe it's the witch, or it has to be because this is where it is, or it's like, are you guys could have just been all fucked up?
It's been ambiguous. We don't know if there is a Blair Witch or not.
And that's what kind of annoyed me, because the first one was like, okay, it's ambiguous, and now it's like, don't try to do that again, because it just becomes cliche. Like, oh, here we go. Was it all in their heads? Is there really a witch? There's not enough proof that it could be a witch. It's like, okay, we get it. Ambiguous the first time. Don't keep it ambiguous again. Put a little more hard. But I guess with like some of like the weird hallucinations stuff, or not hallucinations, but things like seek and like the words, the reverse or whatever.
Subliminal messages. Yeah.
Yeah. And like seeing Jeff's face when he was screaming that they used for the poster and it's in the smoke that Steven comes out. It actually was like, like sinister. There was like sinister stuff about it. And like the kids' faces, reflections, things like that.
So quick though. Like I said, you blink and you're going to miss it.
Yeah, they're very subtle. They're very subtle. And it, like when you look back and you read upon it and hear about it, you're like, oh wow, that actually is really cool. And it's almost like The Haunting of Hill House that was on Netflix. There was literally so much in The Haunting of Hill House that you missed and that you had to go back and watch it again and have people say, oh yeah, did you see this part? Did you see that? Did you catch this? Did you catch that? So and isn't it crazy that, like I said earlier, that interactive movies research and this, like, did you see this, to see that? I said these movies could have been ahead of their time and we didn't realize it. We could have just been like, I just want to watch a movie, and here I go name another movie that basically had this same situation, The Haunting of Hill House, and then like John was saying, Final Destination 3 on the DVD with the interactives, and Black Mirror Bandersnatch. So what might be stupid to us because we just want to watch a movie was actually revolutionary and was ahead of its time. So we should acknowledge it for that. That's why, like, despite it being bad on the surface, there is still something good about this movie. Like I said before, like I didn't watch it and hate it, but I don't also feel like I could say, oh, it's just such a good movie that I could watch it again and again and again.
It's got a cult following. There are some people that actually think this is better than the original.
And I think it's the cult following with the fans. I think it is definitely, if you're a Blair Witch fan, you can appreciate this movie.
Yeah.
It makes sense. Like, honestly, as much shit as I can talk on it, but I see everything that you guys are saying. Like, there's a lot of little touches that could help you enjoy the movie. But like you said, just on the surface, it's not an enjoyable movie. But once you actually like do a little bit of like looking for subliminal things, like even just images, whatever, it actually kind of makes it a little enjoyable. Am I gonna watch again? Probably not. But that's what I'm saying. It's like it could be just something that now I can look forward to if I watch again in the distant future. That I'm gonna look for this stuff now.
I would definitely have it on as a party movie for something in the background.
It's a good drinking movie. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's one of those movies that it could capture somebody's interest, but that's it.
Wait, do you want everybody to leave? Because that's probably what's going to happen. Like, you guys got to go get the fuck out.
Well, I mean, if Carrie Fisher could do it with the holiday special with Star Wars, hey, why can't I do it with Blair Witch 2?
This is a lot better than the holiday special.
I don't know. They're on par with me right now.
No.
Yeah, there was some good quality to this. The holiday special was like you actually went from a blockbuster to.
I think you wanted to just end it after you watched the holiday special. This movie didn't make me hate my life after I saw it.
I do have to admit though, like that first, I want to say like 30 to 40 minutes did drag a little bit, but once everything started to play out, it did actually get a lot better. Like the pacing got smoother. It didn't feel like I was sitting in a room by myself waiting for something to happen. Now it's like, all right, cool. After the blackout and everything, and they were trying to figure out what the fuck happened, it actually got a steadier pace, whereas before it was just like, all right.
I'm actually surprised you didn't really trash on this movie a lot more.
I was expecting a giant Jeff rant on this movie.
Like, honestly, like I said, it's like I didn't hate it as much as I wanted to. Like, as much shit as I did talk a little bit, I'm like, it's the characters that I hated the most about it. Like, I absolutely hated those characters. Like, to me, they were the shittiest fucking people I've ever seen. And, like, they had no redeemable qualities. Like, that, I guess, husband, he was a cock the whole time.
Oh, yeah.
I hated him right off the bat. And then Jeff, on the other hand, I'm like, this fucking asshole.
He was hilarious, though. I don't care what
the one-liners are funny. It's like, I'm like,
dude, hot in his warehouse studio. And it's just...
And I was like, And then you have the stereotype for the witch and the goth girl, and I'm like, do we really need these stereotypes? Are they just cannon fodder at this fucking moment?
But I think, like I said before, it fit. I don't see some normal people really like trusting a guy like Jeff and going on this tour unless that you were different in some ways. So I think those characters, despite if we liked them or not, were the appropriate characters that were part of that movie and should have been a part of that. So
yeah.
It makes sense. Like, what you say, you were expecting a ramp, but honestly, like I didn't hate it as much as I wanted to. Like, yeah, it took me 3 days, but it was because that first 45 minutes is too fucking slow.
So I think you underline, like, see that it actually isn't that horrible. Like, there is some good stuff in it, and it, like, hearing how it got butchered, you're probably like, okay, maybe there could be something better with it, and that's probably why.
Yeah,
that's true. And like starting to realize like a lot of stuff isn't just like the director's fault or the writer's fault. The studio itself is just looking for money, and they're going to be like, all right, well, this is what worked last time. This is what we're going to try this time, and we're going to gear it towards this group of people when we should have done it this way. It's one of those things. Like, even with this movie, we were talking about, they probably geared it towards teens, like, but in reality, they were trying to figure out what they wanted to gear it towards. Like, if they geared it towards more teens, I figured there would be a little more nudity, a little more drinking, a little more partying there during that like blackout, where they chose to downplay a lot of that to, I guess, keep that mystique of whether or not they did all the stupid shit that they did, or if it was just they blacked out and that was the end of it.
Yeah,
that could have been one aspect that nobody thought of. But there's so much even within that 5 hour gap that I'm more curious about the whole movie as a whole than, because I'm like, all right, so you guys just trashed your shit and that's it. That took 5 fucking hours. I mean, dude, I could take 20 minutes in a toddler and 5 fucking people. Cool. I know there's a lot more. And I'm like, that was the one thing that caught my interest. I'm like, all right, now I'm more curious about what's on the tapes. Like, yeah, we got to see what 20 seconds, 20 seconds of a 5 hour, footage.
So, like, we have our pros and cons of it, but is there like a favorite scene or something that you guys liked as far as the movie goes, or or like not like, or anything?
Yeah, my favorite scene, I'll just start right off. My favorite scene is honestly their discussion about what the Blair Witch is before they get blackout drunk. And, you got that famous line, video never lies, Kim, film does though. And then Tristan and Steve are having their conversation, but why are people here? What do they want to see something? And are they afraid to be disappointed? And then Tristan has the line saying, if you truly believe in something, it's real. Perception is reality. And I think that philosophical discussion, if you will, before shit hits the fan, that was the most impactful moment in the entire movie that kind of sets off this chain of events. And that, to me, is the best scene. And while it's a really cool visual of the pages of the novel raining down on them, doesn't make sense to me why it's happening, but it is. And that is, to me, the quintessential scene that stands out in the whole movie. It's my favorite, and not to mention the ending credits song, but that's a song, not a scene. In terms of least favorite, I'll be honest, I thought that the whole reveal where Tristan is possessed by the Blair Witch and her like taunting the group and Jeff saying his lines, weird, like witch bitch, it just kind of came off as comical. The whole thing, and then there was like threats of like, I'm gonna rip your head. Everyone's attacking each other. I thought that was the weakest scene in the whole movie. I'm like rolling with laughter when I'm supposed to be fearing for their lives. I'm chuckling. This is hilarious. Are you trying to freak me out, or are you trying to give me a belly laugh? Because you're giving me a belly laugh right now with how poorly the scene is written, how poorly it's acted in the moment, and the final result. And just like this is the most hilariously bad scene in the whole movie. It's not good.
Yeah, I know. I was laughing at parts you probably shouldn't have been laughing at either.
Yeah, so there's a problem. That's what I have to say.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, those are pretty much my favorite scenes and least favorite scenes too. I mean, I kind of thought the scratching with Steven, like Erica doing the scratching on his chest, and he's kind of like visualizing her getting intimate with him while Tristan was sick in bed. I thought that was a little out there too, and just kind of like I understood the hallucinating scene thing stuff with it, but at the same time, I was also like, this isn't really progressing anywhere. So I was like, that could just you don't really need that. But also, I gotta say, like Jeff's one-liners, they're just so stupid that they're funny. Like I said, just him holding a cup of coffee and having Erica freak out that she was caught naked, and he just goes, "You believe her?"
How about the fucking moment where he turns into the Shocker from Wes Craven's Shocker? He just like is in the electric chair with an orange jumpsuit.
It was like, was this some like foreshadowing that he's guilty? And that's the other thing, like the cut scenes with the the police interrogating him throughout the middle of the movie. It's like, okay, so they're arrested. I assume they're going to be then at the end of this movie.
Yeah.
We know they're guilty of something.
Yeah, it was a lot of alluding. A lot of alluding that we already know the ending because, like you said, at the beginning of the movie, they show stabbing. They're constantly showing the interrogation scene. And it's like, all right, so what are they getting arrested for? Like, oh, obviously they did something fucking stupid. So clearly, if they wanted to play it out as a case file, they should have started it out with the interrogation and then going, all right, well, this is how this played out here. And then kept going that route instead of going, like I said, they didn't choose a fucking lane. They just like, all right, you're on a 5-lane highway. Let's just cut people off and keep going.
Yeah.
And the sad thing is, this movie does have a lot of potential to be better than what it turned out to be. I mean, I definitely saw it for that when I first saw it.
Yes.
And I could like go back and just be like, okay, like I didn't hate it when I rewatched it again, but I was like, oh man, sometimes there is some stuff that just makes no sense. And as a filmmaker, it's so painful because you're like, what are you doing? But it just goes to show the business people versus the artist.
Yeah.
And I mean, and going the artist route isn't always the same way. Sometimes you need a producer to keep you in check too, because you might get overboard. But the only person I ever heard that really is like really good at being good about money and how they work with stuff was Clint Eastwood. So if that's the only one I heard, I mean, that just goes to show how tricky it actually is. But I also feel bad because it makes the director look like he was bad, and really, Joe Berlinger did put a lot of effort and a lot of thought into making a better movie than how it turned out as. So I just wanted to say that as well. He doesn't deserve to be shit on for it. And this was a case of studio interference for sure. It wasn't just, like, oh, it's that excuse, It literally was like they had stories where they said, yeah, the studio executives interfered.
So would you actually watch a director's cut of this movie? Like, just they decided to
I would
be like,
it
all
would
right,
be
cool.
better.
Yeah, I mean, would it make it great? I don't think it would, but I would definitely do it
a lot better.
Yeah, I would definitely do it to give it another chance and see how much better the continuity would be, what they would take out, and what would be how it was supposed to be intended. Like I know we talked about Zack Snyder's Justice League cut. I mean, was it better? Yeah, but it wasn't great.
Yeah, it didn't
at least
4.5 hours.
I think it was a lot. I mean, it doesn't justify the 4-hour runtime, but it was a lot better. I'll say this right now, it's a lot better than the theatrical version.
And that's how I feel that this would be if a director came in. It'd probably be more tolerable, and we could watch it and go, okay, it's not bad. It's not great, but
I know
it would be a background movie where nobody would feel like they'd want to be like, oh, I gotta get the hell out of this place.
The
For decades, people have been clamoring to try and get Shout Factory, like a company, to try and release the director's cut. But as far as we know, I think most of the footage that he shot that was tampered with by the studio doesn't exist. So I don't think director's cut is possible of this movie, even though people have been clamoring for it for decades. He has notes about how to make it better and how what he wanted, but I don't think it's ever going to see the light of day.
Yeah, only time will tell. And if there's people who actually have any sort of like physical, tangible evidence of media for it, then
yeah,
I guess that will be the only way. Artisan Entertainment doesn't exist anymore, so I don't know who exactly owns those rights or if they own a piece of that property, but
I don't know.
Paramount actually has it.
Okay.
Because that's the only place.
Okay.
I thought Lionsgate at one point
could find it.
Yeah.
They might have the movie rights now because I think they did the third one.
So right, they did the third one. Yes, so they may still have them. They may not have them anymore. I'm not sure.
But it makes me wonder who's the parent company of Lionsgate then, because it seems like there's a lot of like hands in these like little companies too. Like, all right, cool.
We're
gonna pull from here, but it's all muddled at this point. It's all the same shit.
Lionsgate's, they're still around. I mean, they're not the heavy hitters, but they have a lot of franchises to lean back on, like the John Wick franchise is under Lionsgate, so they've got that. But I think that was
the Rob Zombies.
Yeah. I think that's the problem. I think Artisan Entertainment saw themselves as a big hitter in the future, when they had that big check for $248 million from the first Blair Witch. They saw dollar signs. They think, hey, we can stand tall with the big guys like Warner Brothers, Universal, Paramount. Look at what we did with a project that cost $60,000. Suck it. And they
didn't even do it. It was independent, and the other people made it, and they sold it at a festival. So
they bought the rights for dirt cheap.
So of course it wasn't going to be the same.
Yeah, no way. So,
yeah.
Final thoughts?
I pretty much said what I have to say. I mean, people might think I'm crazy for some of the positives that I pointed out, but I'm going to stand by them, and you don't have to agree with me. I don't give a damn what you think. I know what I saw, and especially as a filmmaker's perspective, I was like, it's sad that it puts everything in a negative light because of people who aren't the artists in it, and they should have just let them make their movie and give them something. And I think it would have been a lot better than what it turned out to be.
Yes. Like you were alluding to before, Collin, about Joe Berlinger, he's an extremely talented documentarian. He's made a number of films for Netflix. And like I said, Paradise Lost might be my top 3 favorite documentaries I've ever seen.
Oh, shit.
It's really eye-opening. And it's impeccably made. And I can see where that grunginess quality followed from that film to Blair Witch 2. And I'm really happy for Joe Berlinger that he actually got to make another narrative. Many years down the road, he made the Ted Bundy narrative with, oh my goodness, forgot.
Zac Efron?
Zac Efron, yes, who played Ted Bundy very well. And I'm glad that he got another shot to make a narrative. And that's on Netflix. Mm-hmm. And it was well made. And like I said, he's got a good home with Netflix. So I'm glad that he's still consistently finding work.
Agreed.
So kudos to him. Like the lines, the scenes that he films and captures is gorgeous. I mean, the one thing that sticks out to me in Paradise Lost is the one convicted criminal who wasn't a criminal said, I thought in this country it was innocent until proven guilty, not guilty until proven innocent. Like that always stuck with me. And he definitely has he has a good eye. He's got two good eyes when it comes to contributing to the film world. So Joe Berlinger, your work is not forgotten.
Jeff?
I'd say honestly, I wanted to hate this movie 100%. Like I did, but I said, as I was saying before, like I couldn't really hate on it because I saw what they were trying. Like, yeah, the points that I brought up were kind of obvious, and um, going just from a fan point of view, it just really I enjoyed it with the fact that they didn't want that sequel. They're saying that the Blair Witch was just a movie. They filmed it. I thought it was cool. They were going back to like kind of making fun of the fact that now you've got all these fans fucking flooding this small town. Um, but like I said before, that sheriff is what got me. That's what made me get to that movie was that guy fucking being an asshole. Just his one-liners are what got me.
I think I got great one-liners in this movie.
Yeah,
like we don't talk about the humor enough in it, but yeah, the humor's really good.
and I felt like that's what it was. It was like the sheriff came in to break the tension because he was always at 100%. He wasn't like just coming in calmly. He was just like busting through a door, or when he's on the phone with them while they're discovering the bodies at Coffin Rock, he's already like, fuck you, Jeff. I'm at your damn front door. Yeah, there was no like 50%. This dude's at 100% full bore.
I would bet my entire pension.
I feel like he belongs in a Rob Zombie movie.
Yeah.
That character 100% belongs in a Rob Zombie movie.
He also reminded me of the police captain from Samurai Cop. I feel like I got a club up my ass, and it hurts.
All right.
If that was the only takeaway I got from this movie was the fact that the sheriff was my favorite part, it kind of like shows the movie as a whole, okay? And it's like, yeah, the movie wasn't like horrible, but it wasn't fantastic. It has its like low points, but I did like the switch of an ending. The ending itself really showed like, yeah, that the guy knew what he was doing and the build up for it. And I was fine with the abrupt end. Like they realized they fucked up. They knew what was going to happen. That was it. I don't need any playthrough after that. I'm like, cool. What are they gonna do? Fight it? No, they got enough evidence here to put them away. And maybe they did get the death penalty, depending upon at the time.
Well, with Jeff in the electric chair scene, I assume that's what happened.
Yeah.
It was like a foreshadowing, which a lot of that stuff was foreshadowing.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was.
But the owl puppet was probably another one of my favorite things because of how ridiculous that fucking thing was. Because at first I'm like, is that a real owl? I'm like, no. Then you look at it, like eyes move like out of sequence, and I'm like,
the wings are CGI.
Yeah.
No, it's not Halloween H2O mask bad, but it's still pretty noticeable.
But yeah, I honestly would have preferred like a prequel. And that would have made more sense in the timeline just to go, all right, so this is how we got what we got. We didn't get a prequel until I want to say, let's say like 20 years later, they made a game where you had to play the beginning of everything. So you get to see the 1994 killings. You had to play through all that just to see where you're at. And I'm like, I would have preferred that than what we got.
Yeah, the game's cool from what I've been told. The
documentary honestly, Curse of the Blair Witch is really cool too. Yeah. I still enjoy that.
You'll actually have to watch that. That's the only thing I've really, like I said, this whole, I guess, franchise, I've not really, I guess, given a chance because I feel like that first movie, after rewatching it, really left that bad taste in my mouth. And when I said that you're following the three most unlikable characters, and they say fuck more than I do, it really made it unappealing to me. So like going in and like when you suggested watching this movie again, that's why like at first I'm like, no, fuck this, fuck that. But then I'm like, all right, if I could find it and I don't have to pay for it, I'll watch it. So as soon as like, was it within 10 minutes? I was like, yeah.
I was like, oh, okay.
I was like, let's just pull this Band-Aid off and get it done with. But I did enjoy this one a little bit more than the original, which I'm part of that fan base because I saw what the first one did. I'm admitting that, yeah, I understood that after our whole debate on whether or not it was a good movie or not, or whether or not I had to do research for it. It was a cool concept. But this one, acknowledging that was just a movie and doing the aftermath of the movie and then playing its own story out, proving that this witch might have actually been a real thing, shows that it influenced more people than what we could ever think of. Showing the international fans doing that tour, the mismatch group that we are following that are shitty people, we all got to see every aspect that first movie influenced a lot of people and influenced a lot of things because we saw it parodied everywhere. Come on, even Scary Movie parodied it.
Yeah.
Everybody parodied the Blair Witch Project. Everybody.
I parodied it. Look at my Instagram.
You did. Yeah, you did.
Hence why we're dressed like this today.
Yeah.
We're not going to a Alice in Chains concert? What are you talking about?
I saw Alice in Chains live. They put on a show.
So did I. They're awesome. But
no, Jeff, I gotta say, I'm actually really surprised and impressed though that you took a movie and a series that you hate and actually put in some time.
I'm shocked too, honestly,
and pointed out some positives with it because this movie's like generally hated throughout across the board. But
I mean, it's not scary.
You are, I mean, I thought you were like ready to just be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be me, and you're like, no, they're actually like they tried.
Yeah, like honestly, like as the show has been going on, everyone has seen me evolve as a fan and a film watcher because now I'm actually looking for everything rather than all right, I'm just looking at it as a fan's point of view. Like now I'm looking for like the way it's shot because like it does help me enjoy everything a little bit more. Like I know, take for instance the new Evil Dead. A lot of people hated it. I loved it because of what it was. Yeah, like the way it was shot. Some of the little nods they did to the original series, the fact that they actually acknowledged that Army of Darkness had 3 books. I know I'm giving off a lot right now. It made me enjoy it more. And the fact that when I watched it in theaters and I laughed my ass off at probably some of the most gruesome fucking shit I've ever seen, it proved that I'm like, all right, cool. Now I'm enjoying it just for a movie. And like, they did an amazing job shooting it. It's now that, when I was hesitant of rewatching this movie, like I remember hating this movie 100% first time. I want to say probably the first 5 times I've watched it. And it's also been, it's been a while. Like, dude, I probably was maybe like my teens and early 20s when we watched this the first time. Listen, I love how you're laughing. In fact, I watched multiple horrible horror movies just to be like, all right, do I actually hate this thing? So yeah. If it was on Sci-Fi, I was gonna watch it. There was nothing else on. Cool.
It was. Yeah, it is.
I remember McFarlane Toys had the toy of the Blair Witch, and it came out around the time this movie came out. And I thought, oh, the witch is in this one, and it's like, no.
Wait, I think it was the toy for the movie. I think it actually had the Blair Witch 2 fucking poster.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
Wait,
did the studio want that cut out too?
Oh my god.
Dude, I'd rather see that fucking witch than anything else in this entire movie. That sequence, it could have been a 30-second sequence of this creature just popping out of a closet. I would be like, oh, fuck. All right. Anyway.
Yeah.
Well, I hope if they do another one, then they do show the witch that it's Heather Donahue playing it just for fun.
Oh my gosh, it'd be amazing.
It was great.
Look at the.
She was the witch the whole time.
I was thinking, look at the sequence from Sleepy Hollow and the sister that was the witch. That face, like all that nastiness. I'm like, if they would have had her dress up like that and just like scare the shit out of Jeff, I would have been fine with that.
Yeah. That's how it ends.
And credits roll. Fucking 20 minutes into the movie.
Well,
but yeah, it's just as much as I enjoy trashing movies, it's more now that I'm trying to evolve and like, yeah, dude, everyone still listens to me trash movies all the time because that's my favorite thing to do. Like, as much as I will sit through hours of shitty movies just because I love having talking points. Just because there's nothing else more that makes me laugh because like I'll tell people about some random fucking movie and then they're like, really? You watched them? Like, oh, you want to know? But I mean, I could talk about shitty movies the whole time, but I know we're running out of time.
Speaking of time, I think we should wrap this episode up.
We should.
All right.
I think we said enough.
Yep.
So, with that being said, we shall sign off. This is Colin Peters,
John Rashatter,
and Jeff Manfred.
Thank you all once again for listening. Stay safe. Stay crazy.
Please, somebody help me.
Oh, yeah.